check. Alright, that should be fine. Should be good to go then. Cool. Alright, so we're going to continue playing Hero of Kendrickstone. Apologies again for my voice. I'm literally dying, so that's cool. But I will continue on anyways. Where are we? So we need... Okay. Dame Mildred parts ways with you as the two of you walk through Kendrickstone's massive gates. Remember, she says as she begins to ride away, if you wish to enter my service, come to keep at any time. I'll have it arranged. With that, the knight who may have saved your life is gone, disappearing into the massive throng of people who mingle and surge and crowd the narrow, well-trodden city streets, even at this late hour. One sec, I'm gonna go find something to, like, clear my nose so I'm not dying. Alright, there. Hopefully that'll help. Put my shit back in. Okay. The senses of the city overwhelm you from every direction. First there's noise, the cacophony of hundreds of people, merchants hawking their wares, 100 different conversations, the cries of animals and children, the rattle of carts, and 100 other noises. It is all the bubbling babble of a village meeting magnified 1,000-fold. Then there are the smells, the sweet and stink of thousands of sweat. Sweet. The sweat and stink of thousands of unwashed bodies, miasma left by the piss and shit of humans and animals both, the stench of rotting food, smoke, and cooking grease, and other foul odors you cannot even recognize. The air is thick with droppings and cast-offs, the rotting byproducts of tens of thousands of lives. Finally, your ears get used to the cacophony, and your nose begins to filter the overpowering stench. And you can see the glory that is Kendrickstone, houses piled 3 or 4 stories high, stretching into the distance like a jumbled mass, the high, thick walls cordoning them from the outside world. To one side stands an immense human-raised mountain of spires and turrets and crenellated bulwarks in blood-red stone. The city's keep where the Duke of Kendrickstone rules all he surveys. To the other side, a strange construction overlooks the city, what looks like 2 towers, one upended and hovering in midair above the other. Either that's a wizard's tower, or you're the Mans of Corlandus. With the day quickly drawing to a close, you need to decide where to go. Let's figure this out. Where should we go? Find an inn to stay at. You head into the winding maze of narrow roads, some cobbled, Some cobbled, some nothing more than a thick layer of dirt, rainwater, and other materials you really don't want to think about. With no particular direction in mind, you wander the streets looking for an inn or other accommodation. Alas, in the twisting roads of the great city, in the encroaching gloom of night, you soon find yourself hopelessly lost. Before long, you have no idea at all where you are. You've never been in a big city like Kendrickstone. And the gloom of night, coupled with the shadowy silhouettes of the buildings around you, has left you entirely disoriented. Worse yet, the throngs of people who were crowding the streets not long ago have retreated into their homes. You're practically alone. Practically, but not quite. You turn yet another corner into the evening gloom, only to find yourself face to face with a pug-faced man in a stout leather jack. A truncheon in one hand and a lit torch in the other.
"You there,"
he demands.
"where are your papers, boy?"
Okay. Pretend to look for papers, I guess. Let's figure this. Let's hope this goes well. You make a show of rummaging through your belongings. "I'm sure I have them somewhere," you reply with feigned confidence. After a few moments, the man with the truncheon loses his patience.
"I don't think you've got the papers at all. Your right of protection, give it here now,"
he snarls as he steps forward, brandishing his weapon. Instinctively, you take a step back. That was a mistake. You feel the cold steel of a sharp blade press against your throat.
"Oh,"
whispers a voice just behind your ear.
"where do you think you're going?"
The man with the truncheon whistles two notes, sharp and loud in the evening gloom. Another dozen men and women step out of the shadows, seemingly from every alleyway and alcove. Some carry daggers, some clubs. 3 hold steel-bowed obelisks, capable of punching holes through steel plate.
Being out alone at night without a right of protection, you should know better,"
the man with the truncheon snarls.
"You should know what that means."
You spend a moment completely confused, since you very obviously don't. The thug with the truncheon growls in frustration.
"Hand over your money and weapons, you stupid idiot,"
he snarls.
"We'll leave you the clothes on your back as a courtesy, but next time we find you out with no writ, we'll just slit your throat and have done with you."
How wonderful. For the second time today, someone's trying to rob you. The situation looks grim indeed. You're in an unfamiliar city, alone at night, and surrounded by more than a dozen heavily armed robbers. What now? Let's try to talk them out of it. There must be some way to convince these people you're not someone they want to rob. Perhaps you can pretend that you are the child of a powerful noble. No, your clothes aren't fine enough. The old standby of pretending to be a wizard in a harmless disguise, that may have to do. You open your mouth to speak. What's all this then? All around you, the thugs seem to freeze up at the sound of a reedy and authoritative voice. A man steps out from the shadows, not another thug, but a thin, balding man of middle years, dark hair pulled back and complemented by a neatly trimmed beard. He wears a bright blue doublet, black hose, and a draped chaperon of a wealthy merchant. "Let that boy go," he orders. Surprisingly enough, the knife disappears from your neck. You can't help but stare in puzzlement. A wealthy merchant, alone at night and unarmed? These thugs should be robbing him, not taking orders from him.
Boss, this one's fair game. No writ of protection or anything."
"Of course the boy has no writ, you stupid dolt," the man in the blue doublet replies peevishly.
"He's just come into town. Janet's group saw this one walk through the gate not an hour ago."
The merchant walks up to you as the thugs all lower their weapons.
"Look, I'm quite sorry about this mess,"
he says to you. That doesn't even come close to answering any of your questions. In fact, it might have raised a few more. Let's go with this. Who are you? Bulgeous man dips his head in a polished fluid courtier's bow.
William of Hereford at your service. And you?
I am Axius, you reply, from Foster's Hollow. The merchant's eyebrow raises.
Ah, so you're new here. Well, in that case, allow me to offer you some advice.
These fine men and women, he gestures to the heavily armed thugs surrounding you.
Answer to me. Should any of them continue to trouble you in any way, do not hesitate to come to me, and I shall see your case redressed. I have a very large manse in the right wall quarter. It's quite easy to find.
Your eyes widen. Who is this man, and how exactly did he obtain the immense power and wealth he seems to wield with such familiarity? William of Halliford smiles.
These folk are my workers. You see, I'm a merchant. I trade in protection, to be more specific.
I am sure that no man, woman, or child under my protection in the city is threatened by pickpockets, burglars, or murderers. You return the merchant's look poignantly, remembering the feeling of sharp steel against your throat.
That's funny, you say, voice dripping with irony, because I could have sworn your workers were about to rob me.
The merchant replies with the shake of a head and an easy smile.
You must understand, dear boy, I run a business. I generally find it is good policy if those unwilling to pay for protection are reminded of why that might be inadvisable. Ah, so you protect those who can pay and prey on those who can or who can't. You daft little fool! Oh, you daft little fool! The man with the truncheon exclaimed. You'd rather live in fear of being robbed or knocked every day than pay your coin and walk the streets in safety.
Tom, I would have a care not to speak to our young guest so harshly, interjects William of Halliford in a tone of rebuke. The thug nods and mutters an apology under his breath. Of course, as coarsely as he might have put it,
Tom does have a point, the merchant continues. This city's criminals feared nobody and answered to no one when I first arrived. Now they fear me, and thus, so long as you pay your fee, you've no need to fear them.
A writ of protection, the merchant replies. Why, it's one of these, of course. He reaches into one of the many pouches at his belt and pulls out a small roll of tough, expensive-looking vellum tied with a string of red yarn. The merchant unfolds the scroll with a practiced movement and then produces a bottle of ink, and a sharpened reed, the kind used for writing, from another pouch. He unstoppers the ink and dips the reed in the ink and scribbles something onto the scroll.
This scroll is 3 months' worth of protection, he says as he offers it to you. It will ward you from thieves and other criminals. If you are ever accosted within the city walls by a thug or brigand, simply show this to them and they'll leave you be.
You take the scroll and the merchant continues. Normally a rite like that would cost you 50 silver. However, as an apology for your rough treatment, I offer this one to you for free. You will, of course, have to buy another at the end of the 3-month period. Well, where am I exactly? The man with the truncheon rolls his eyes. One of the thugs behind him actually sheathes her dagger to bury her face in her palm. You're in the warrens, my friend. The merchant replies. It's the poorest part of town and the easiest one to get lost in. Few people who don't live here ever come in,
and none by choice. Suddenly, you feel very, very small. The shadows of the houses around you seem to loom even larger above you, as if to blot out the evening sky. Let's see. I very much hope. Okay, sorry, I lost my place. I very much hope that you didn't come here by choice, my friend. You shake your head nervously. No, I didn't. I guess I was pretty lucky to run into you, wasn't I? Now certainly worst scenarios running through your head. The merchant looks at you oddly for a moment, then smiles. Lucky? Yes. I suppose you might think that. William of Halliford peers up at the sky for a moment, and then looks back down. Regardless, it's best you be getting out of here. I mean no offense to the fine folk who live here, but the Warrens after dark can be an unpleasant place, especially if you're not used to the big city. I suppose you will need directions. Let's drop by again. So, I'm looking for an inn, you reply. I need somewhere to stay while I find some work. The merchant thinks for a moment. I know of a good place, he says. The owner's fair and the rates are cheap. The rooms are clean as such places go, and the food isn't too bad. That sounds like as good a recommendation as any. How might I find this place? William of Halliford takes you by the shoulder and turns you towards one of the dark alleys. Take that road down until it splits in two. From there, turn right until you get to the river. Then walk past the bridge until you see the sign of a flaming sword. That's the place. The Blazing Sword Inn. You go over the instructions in your mind until you're sure you understand them. Then you nod. Thank you for the directions, you reply. I should probably get going. However, before you turn to leave, the man in blue speaks again. Hold a moment, he says. You stop. Now that I think about it, someone like you might be of great use to me. You're young, fit, and fresh from the country. I could offer you a bed, meals, and even a little bit of pay in exchange for a few services. What kind of services? You've heard the cautionary tale of a bright-eyed youth coming to the city, getting taken in by unscrupulous and immoral, and being forced into disreputable trades you certainly want no part in. William of Halliford recoils for half a moment, an expression of shock on his face. Not the sort you're thinking of, not at all. I need a courier, someone capable of running messages and delivering an occasional warning or two. Nothing illegal and certainly nothing unsavory. You nod, the man's vehemence if nothing else. The merchant in blue continues. If you truly wish to walk free, follow me at a discreet distance, he says as he turns to leave. I will enter a house, wait as long as it seems prudent, then knock upon the door. If you decide against it, walk away, and this conversation will never have happened. Before long, the bright blue of the merchant's doublet is disappearing into the shadows of the narrow street. If you wish to follow him and enter his employ, you must decide to do so now before you lose sight of him. Tempting, very tempting. That's a good job opportunity, I suppose. Fuck it. Let's follow him. Let's see what goes on. Oh, cool. An achievement.
Deciding quickly before your soon-to-be employer slips out of sight, you follow William through the winding streets of the Warrens as the sky grows darker and the stars begin to prick the black felt of the sky with their lights. As evening fades to night, you have trouble seeing the man you are following. Suddenly, without warning, he stops in the middle of the road. A dark figure pops out from a side alley to greet him, and before you know it, William of Halliford has a lit torch in his hand to shed light as he walks. You keep following. Soon, the constricted, muddy alleyways give way to cobbled streets. The tottering slums become well-maintained shop fronts, and then elegant townhouses with front gardens and stone fences. Finally, as the sky turns inky black, the merchant in blue stops before a stone manse at the end of a wide cobbled boulevard. There we go. Perfect. Soon the constricted muddy alleys give way to cobbled streets, and the tottering slums become well-maintained shop fronts and then elegant townhouses with front gardens and stone fences. Finally, as the sky turns inky black, the merchant in blue stops before a stone manse at the end of a wide cobbled boulevard, opulent in its sheer size and solidity. You wait for a few minutes and then seek entrance. A doorwoman lets you in immediately and shows you to a servant's dining room, where you are fed a late meal of honey porridge, ale, and the scraps from what must have been a magnificent roast. She then leads you to a small guest room in one of the wings, furnished with a narrow but well-stuffed mattress. Exhausted, you collapse on the mattress and are soon fast asleep. The next day, a servant wakes you at sunrise with a summons to report it to the mansion's master for your first assignment. Thus begins your time in service of William of Halliford. You spend your next 3 months as the newest courier in William of Halliford's organization. Almost immediately, you begin hearing rumors about the man, how he came from his hometown of Halliford with nothing and slowly took over Kendrickstone's underworld. How the rest of the city fears him so much that they've given him a seat on the Duke's council. How he uses ancient magic to disappear into shadows. Regardless of what others say about him, your new employer proves an undemanding one. Your duties as a courier involve little more than delivering messages to various traders. Usually the messages are mere bookkeeping, notices of overdue payment being foremost among them. On very rare occasions, you're ordered to deliver or pick up small amounts of money, a few silvers at most, never enough to consider stealing, especially considering you and the pickpockets have the same boss. You also find that your frequent trips around the city have taught you a great deal about making and spending money. You learn among other things how much a tallow chandler makes, and how much a barrel of wine costs, and which wharf in the port is reserved for each guild. Even better, you are compensated generously for your work. Aside from a room lent to you by another member of your employer's organization and regular meals, you are paid the handsome wage of 40 silver a month, almost as much as a skilled crafter. How you decide to spend that money, however, proves another dilemma. While it would normally be prudent to save as much money as you can, it might be wiser, as an adventurer, to live as well as you can afford instead. An adventurer who is well fed and comfortable is one who is healthier both mentally and physically, and that might have a considerable effect on your capabilities. In fact, living well might possibly save your life one day. You take the opportunity to buy conveniences. Do you take the opportunity to buy conveniences, or do you save the money? I suppose let's buy some like good stuff at least. You're not rich and you know it. However, you do occasionally drop some money on things to make your life a bit more comfortable. You buy a new tunic when your old one starts falling apart, and a tankard of strong meat every few days. No little things, but they keep your spirits up without emptying your purse. After your work is complete, you have the last few hours of the day to yourself. How do you spend them? How much money we got? Hot damn. That's some good money. Let's buy a book or two. Let's see. Let's see. The books are expensive in Kendrickstone and everywhere else in the world. However, the sheer number of scribes and booksellers in this city means you can at least get a few of the texts you're looking for without embarking on a 7-year quest and slaying a manticore for them. After a few evenings of searching, you are able to find a few books that cover topics you might be interested in. In the end, you decide to purchase. Let's see, Great Deeds of Valiant and Virtuous, a collection of heroic tales. My voice is so fucking trashed. I might have to put off doing more of this until later. I'll go until the end of this chapter, but I have to wait till my voice gets better. Not like my voice is all that great anyways, but I think that might be useful. You spend the rest of your evenings leafing through the marvelously illuminated pages of your new book, learning about the vast array of armors used in lands close and distant. From the familiar mail hauberk worn by Kendrickstone's knights to the mirror breastplates of the Khazara, you widen your knowledge of protective gear worn by the world's soldiers and adventurers. The last section catches your interest particularly. It describes a hypothetical type of armor made entirely from interlocking plates of hardened steel, tailored to perfectly fit its wearer. Such armor would be impervious to bow, sword, and even the couched lance of a charging knight on horseback. Of course, the metalworking techniques needed to create such a suit are purely hypothetical. It seems this proposed shining armor will not be reality for generations to come. Cool, so that's where we are. One morning, as summer begins to give way to autumn, your host wakes you with a message from William of Halliford. Dame Mildred of Sonomerse, this knight whom you met on the road all those months ago, has requested your presence, and your boss wants you to answer the summons. My voice.
Good day, Axius of Foster's Hollow, was it?
Dame Mildred says as you enter her sparse but spacious rooms.
I've got something that might appeal to you. Interested in some adventuring work?
You nod. The knight smiles, reaches into the fold of her doublet and pulls out a letter of heavy parchment, sealed in red wax.
An important matter has come up.
She unfolds the letter, carefully prying open the wax seal with her thumb, and shows you the contents. The writing is mechanical and nearly perfect, the calligraphy of an aristocrat. This letter comes to me from my mother, the Baroness of Sonomerse. Mildred explains as she folds the message back up. It tells me that she is in need of aid. Oh, I'm sorry.
It tells me that she is in need of aid. The sort of aid I think you may be suited to provide.
Your mind races. A genuine quest? The sort that once brought fame to the adventurers of old? You have so many questions. Well, what's the problem? Dame Mildred takes a moment to look through the message again. My mother speaks of a beast terrorizing the farmers working on her furthest outlying holdings. She believes the beast is a razorclaw, that is, a large forest predator, something in between a wolf and a hedgehog. Damn, fuck. We should have got the book for tracking. Oh well. Let's see. It's got sharp quills and claws that can rip through mail like loose cotton. Hence the name. You imagine the creature in your head. Such a beast wouldn't certainly be worth killing for the renown, if nothing else. Is there a reward? Dame Mildred nods, though not without a hint of annoyance.
I would think so, yes. My mother was once an adventurer too. I doubt she'd be foolish enough not to offer a generous reward should you succeed.
Your mother was an adventurer? The knight nods.
A long time ago. She was once a companion to Duke Leofric in his adventuring days before he became Duke and lost his sword arm. I am told the two of them still have quite the reputation in the Iron Marches.
Why can't the Knights of Kendrickstone handle this? The Dame Mildred nods, her expression a combination of pain and annoyance.
Normally I'd go myself, or barring that I'd ask a favor of one of the other knights, but I'm afraid we must be elsewhere.
The knight looks out the window that shows the keep's courtyard.
His Grace Duke Leofric has ordered us out northwards to escort the tax wagon from Halliford, which will likely take us a week or more. When the increased bandit tax are late, I'm afraid such a duty is far more important than any personal request I may have.
Dame Mildred hesitates for a moment as she turns back to you.
I am unsure that you are suited for this kind of work, but if you want to be an adventurer, you must grow used to such expediences.
Dame Mildred steps forward, hands on her hips.
Will you take the job or not?
A real adventuring job, innocents to rescue, a powerful aristocrat offering a hefty reward. How could you say no? You turn to your room to gather your things to find William of Halliford waiting for you.
I take it you've accepted the job.
You nod. 3 months has been more than enough time for you to learn that nothing happens in Kendrickstone without your boss knowing of it. William nods.
Very good. I shall require you to perform another service for me.
You nod again. Despite his polite words, the man's request has all the force of a bellowed edict. He smiles, lips drawn tight over unnaturally white teeth.
The Baroness Elaine of Sonamerce has in her service a singularly talented armorer by the name of Jocelyn Iron Hero. My sources tell me her experiments with the use of steel plates and armor have borne considerable fruit. They say her armor can turn aside swords, arrows, and even the point of a great lance held by a knight at full gallop. How coincidental that that's exactly what we were reading. Crazy, anyways.
Let's see. Gold flashes before William's eyes, and then that familiar gold piece is rolling across his knuckles.
I, for one, would very much like such a piece of armor for my collection, you see. Unless my attempts to purchase such from the Baroness have been rebuffed. If you could somehow get your hands on it.
He flips his coin into the air and catches it between his 2 fingers, holding it temptingly in front of your eyes.
This could be yours.
A golden duke, a coin worth 100 silver pennies. You could eat well indeed for such a sum. That is something you spare no small thought to as your boss leaves the room.
Yeah, but to be fair, we have a gold... Yeah, we have 1 gold piece anyways, so it's not that crazy.
No. We'll see. Yeah, look at that eloquence. There's still plenty of daylight left, enough time for you to get to Sonamerce by sunset if you are lucky. Still, it would certainly not be remiss of you to spend a few minutes browsing the now opening stalls. After all, it won't hurt to be prepared for anything, and you should still be able to make it to Santa Merce by sunset if you don't linger too long. Yeah, let's do some shopping. You head down to the markets that serve the soldiers and knights of the Duke of Kendrickstone. Nestled against the high walls of the keep, they're easy enough to find, even if the sight of thick stone fire bricks and the choking smoke of the forges and their oh my god. Acrid stink of tanning fluids didn't give it away. The names of the streets themselves, Steel Lane, Blade Alley, Fourslayer Road, Fourslayer, pointedly confirm that you're in the right place. After a few minutes of browsing, you find some things that may be of use to you. One of the smaller tanners has made a side business of selling scraps of leather as handicrafts. One in particular catches your eye, a well-made sling perfectly for hurling small rocks or lead bullets at distant foes. The tanner asks 50 silver for it. Most of the products of the smiths on Blade Alley are far beyond your meager means. However, one sword is within your reach. It is notched and rust-spotted, true, but the steel seems good, and it fits well in your hand. The smith asks 125 silver for it. Oh. Big oof. Obviously, a coat of mail is well out of your price range. Even the cheapest hard bricks start at 15 and 20 gold. You could, however, get yourself an akaton or an arming doublet made of quilted cotton and reinforced with boiled leather panels. An akaton does not provide much protection, but it may be enough to turn a killing blow into a flesh wound. Lastly, nestled between the market stalls and the gate to the keep is a small wine shop. Its owner bellows to all who can hear the virtues of his most expensive product, a skin of fine Khazari lion milk, a liquor known for its smoothness and strength. For 30 silver you can buy it to alleviate the strains of the long road to Santa Merce. I guess we might as well buy the sling. We need some kind of weapon. You haggle for a few minutes with the tanner and get him to drop his price to 40 silvers. You hand over some of the precious silver pennies and the sling is yours, along with a sack of heavy lead bullets. The tanner even lets you loose a few bullets in his yard. The sling is an easy enough weapon to get used to, and you quickly manage the basics, except you don't actually hit any of your targets. Cool. Neat. Perhaps the horrific stench of the tanning beds throws your aim off, or maybe you're just bad at it. Either way, you manage to get your shots flying in the general desired direction, and that's about it. Soon, you notice the sun high in the sky. You won't be able to make it to Santa Merce by nightfall without leaving immediately. You quickly head for the gates. Thankfully, you make it all the way to the fortress without being accosted or delayed. The sun still peeks through the trees when you walk out of the forest and into the clearing before the towers of Santa Merce. The fortress of Santa oh my god, I'm like dying here. I have to end this soon before I actually lose my voice. Right, once we get to the, once we talk to the queen then, or the baroness, I'm gonna stop because I'm like losing my voice. The fortress of Santa Merce is quite unlike anything you've seen before, and I can't imagine that this is pleasant to listen to. Its primary structures are two gigantic stone towers, one looming over each side of the road. A stone curtain wall, twice the height of the soldiers atop it, surrounds each tower and its associated outbuildings. Instead of blocking the road, the fortress proceeds over it. A covered walkway arches between the two towers, leaving the road further south in its shadow. Further travel on the main road would take you into the border marches, the vast expanse of the southern scrublands, and finally the empire of Corlandus. Instead, you take a left on a smaller divergent path towards one of the gates cut into the curtain walls. Two soldiers are waiting at the gate, spears in hand. Both wear kettle helms and surcoats bearing the familiar sigil of Santa Merce, same one worn by Dame Mildred. "Hold!" one of them shouts. "State your business." "I am here to answer the Baroness's request for aid," you reply. One of the soldiers leans forward to take a closer look.
Are you now? If you're a knight of Kendrickstone, where's your horse, your armor, and your squire?
You shake your head. I am not a knight, just an adventurer. You see the expressions on both soldiers fall flat at that. They were expecting a trained soldier with decades of experience. And they got you. Still, disappointment or no, they try their best to make you feel welcome. After a short inspection, they escort you to the fortress. The yard of the eastern tower of Salamanca cannot be much larger than the market square of a small town, yet it is filled with men, women, and children, all wearing the earthen hues of farmers and yeomen. Even in the dying light of the sunset, you can see the expressions of despair and anger in their faces. There are perhaps 3 or 4 dozen in all, enough to people a small farming hamlet. Your escort tells you they are the folk who fled from the Razor Claw's attacks. The 2 guards lead you past the courtyard into one of the thick-walled towers. There you are given a simple evening meal of bread, ale, and cheese. A bed is provided for you in the guardroom, cramped but clean and soft enough for a good night's rest. The next morning you wake up before the sun has even risen. Around you, most of the guards still sleep. As far as you can tell, only a minimal dawn watch is still up and about. You have no doubt that neither Dame Mildred nor her lady mother would approve of you dawdling about the fortress for several days as the Razor Claw continues its attacks. However, perhaps it would be best to gather some information before heading out. Alternatively, if you plan to fulfill your boss's request through less than legitimate means, now would be the best time to do so. After all, the fortress's forge is likely to be empty, making this the perfect time to steal what you need.
Oh, man.
Okay. Let's try it.
Cool. Do. Neato.
This is gonna go awfully. Let's see. Okay. With most of the fortress's staff still waking in the pre-dawn gloom, now is the perfect time to complete your mission for William of Halliford. Despite its imposing appearance, Sana Merce is not a very large fortress, and it does not take you long to find the stone adjunct of the eastern tower that houses the forge. The heavy iron banded door is padlocked, but the mechanism looks oversized and clumsy. You probe the keyhole experimentally with the thin blade of your belt knife and your cloak pin. After a few moments, you manage to work the lock open. Hey. You step through the doorway, trying to keep as quiet as possible. Each errant creak of the door's hinges and muffled thump of your boot soles on the floor makes you wince. You slink into the long, vaulted room, taking care not to bump into... What did I say? Hold on. Into the heavily laden tables surrounding the cold and dark forge. Hold on, checking something real quick. Anyway, the handiwork of Sana Merce's master armorer and her apprentices is arrayed around you in racks along the walls, on the tables, and in bins ready to be polished or finished. You look through the smaller pieces, which will be the easiest to hide and least likely missed. You pick out a gauntlet not made of mail as most gauntlets are, but from small interlocking steel plates held together with tiny masterfully crafted rivets. At a glance, you understand why Jocelyn, an Iron Hero, has such a reputation. Her armor would be able to fend off all but the heaviest blows. You bring the piece up to the light of the open window. It shines silvery blue, of the color of finished steel. You put the gauntlet and its partner in your traveling pack, wrapping them tightly to make sure they do not rattle together. Spawn. Now that you've got what you came here for, you still have to get out. Uh-oh. You were hoping you didn't make enough noise to alert a particularly awake guard. You were wrong. You step out of the doorway to find yourself face to face with an armed and armored retainer, surcoat bearing the Baroness's colors, and stout mace at the ready.
Hey, what in the name of the court are you doing here?
Right, let's convince him.
Okay. What's wrong?
You reply innocently. The god's expression grows even more stern.
The forge is off limits to anyone without Mistress Jocelyn's permission. What are you doing here?
You put on the expression of a dullard. Your jaws go slack and your eyes go wide. You spend a full half second feigning realization.
This isn't the Great Hall?
You ask petulantly.
No, you fool. This is the forge.
The god snarls back.
The Great Hall is in the outer tower.
For a moment you think the god will let you get away free, but then his eyes come to rest on the open door. Okay, this is going very well so far.
How did you get in here, he demands. The door is supposed to be unlocked.
You offer what you hope to be is a completely uncomprehending shrug, your heart racing under your idiot facade.
You locked that when I got here. That's why I thought it was the Great Hall.
The god is almost where you want him now. You need only one more push. You look up at him expectantly.
Is this the Great Hall?
The guardsman explodes. No, you He stops himself, takes a deep breath, and then continues.
No, this is not the Great Hall. The Great Hall is that way.
He pushes you off in the desired direction.
That way.
You hear the guard muttering to himself even as you turn the corner, straighten your expression, and get away. Oh, good lord. Hell yeah, man. I am a smart man. Let's question some of the farmers. It's not difficult to find someone in the tower courtyard to answer your questions. Those seeking refuge from the Razor Claw are still there, huddled for warmth around iron braziers, wool blankets and shawls wrapped tight to ward off the early morning chill. When you step out into the midst, some of them stand and gather around you.
Are you here to kill one of the beasts? One asks. I would really like to go home soon, says another.
Word of your arrival has spread quickly, it seems. Soon the displaced farmers form a ring around you, men, women, and children. They stand in silence, anticipating what you are going to say next. Will you ask them anything?
When did the attacks begin?
A man steps forward, grey-haired and stooped with age.
It was about a week ago, wasn't it? When they found poor Jeff out in the woods.
Jeff? Man shakes his head sadly.
Cut open like a hog he was. Hold on a moment, another voice calls out. One of my cows disappeared 3 days before that. We found a pig clean not far away from when we found Jeff.
More voices speak up, citing other incidents, other strange disappearances, and unlikely sightings, all of them within the last 2 weeks. Soon, the cacophony of competing voices impossible to untangle. It takes you a minute to quiet everyone down again.
At what time do the attacks occur?
Surprisingly enough, this question gets no solid answers. Some say they thought they saw the beast slinking around the edge of the forest at noon. Others assert that the creature could only be spotted at sunrise or sunset. One man pipes up.
It must attack at night. That's what Ma thought.
On mention of the name, a few of the farmers shuffle back, some looking over their shoulders.
Who's Maud?
The farmers hesitate. A few start to open their mouths, but shut them without speaking. Finally, a child steps forward, wide eyes gleaming under a mop of red hair.
She's my ma. She stayed behind with a few of the others,
he declares exuberantly.
They're gonna slay the beast when it attacks again.
One of the other children quickly drags the boy back. The man who first spoke shakes his head.
Pay no mind to him. All those fools who stay behind on to pray they don't get in your way.
The farmer mutters among themselves.
None of us have seen it for ourselves, None of us have seen it ourselves,
one of the women answers.
But the Baroness, she took a look at the wounds that thing cut into Jeff the miller. She said the cuts were too deep to be anything but a razor claw.
The others around the speaker nod solemnly. It seems the Baroness's expertise carries a lot of weight around these parts when it comes to monster attacks. The Farmers slowly disperse to let you pass. Some still seem to be in a state of shock. You hide your disdain as best you can. They have the look of a routed army, and the weakness disgusts you. Still, one of them is able to give you directions to the site of the last attacks, where, she hopes, a group of desperate holdouts still live. But now, let's request an audience. Okay, so we've gotten to the bananas. So I think I'll end it here for now, because my voice is like fading in and out. I'm tempted to go stream WoW. I might stream WoW. I think I'll come back tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll stream WoW, but I gotta go to the gym in a bit. So, my friends are I'm sure gonna spam me, so we'll end it here for now. So, thank you for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow. So, bye.